Hi, Marvin. How are you doing? Welcome to Freshly Pressed.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Today we have with us Marvin Wynn, who's the writer of The Edge. It's a very. I read the preview and I really loved it. I want to see more. So I'll be sure to order it from the Diamond catalog in my local comic book store.
Awesome.
Uh, Welcome to the show, Marvin. I want to know, how did you get into comics? A brief history about yourself, and how you
Sure.
got interested in it.
My interest in comics came from watching G.I. Joe. And back the G.I. Joe, probably the only animated series or comic that had a commercial. So at the end of some of the episodes, it would show the G.I. Joe book and it would say, continue the adventure and uh, like picking up by going to pick up the comic. So I asked my mom to pick me up the comic at the local spinner rack in the Five and Dime store. I think Woolworth would have been McCory. There were two of them in downtown Pittsburgh. So from GI Joe, we went from there. Then I got Spider-Man because Spider-Man is Amazing Friends, and then the X-Men on there. I started reading X-Men comic, Captain America, and things like that. So that's where I started there. And as you read further, I got into more of X-Men. And then when Jim Lee came on that, and then followed Jim Lee and his crew to Wildstorm
Mm,
through Image.
that's awesome. Jim Lee is one of my favorites as well,
Yes.
and Chris Claremont and Jim Lee run of X-Men is what actually got me into comics in the first place. So it's yeah. I don't know. It's a strange thing that so many of the creators I've spoken to have X-Men as one of their like either favorites or something that actually got them into comics in the first place.
Right. I mean, for years, it was one of the best written comics on the shelves, and it's different than the other books because they portray the X Men as the outcasts of Marvel Universe, and like nobody wanted to team up with them. They were always in secret, hush hush, and all the other heroes were like, "What's going on with those guys over here?" Or we're like, either they're afraid of them or they don't understand them.
Yeah, very true. And also, I think X-Men ha as a character, the stable is so big. They have so much variety that like pretty much
Mhm.
anyone can relate to any of those X-Men, you know? So yeah, nice. So can you tell us a bit about the Edge and your work, other work if you have?
Sure. So the Edge is about a drug called the Edge. So it can grant people abilities, but the consequences is either it could kill them or drive them insane. And our one of our lead characters, Revenant, is a like a special ops um, guy with the ability to duplicate himself from his blood. So if it's in a fight, he bleeds, it creates more copies of him.
Wow.
Um, this is both a once again for him and detrimental because what happens is that his personality or his mental capacity splits between these duplicates. So the more of them, the more unstable he is. So he's out in the world in the sense that he doesn't want to work for his handler anymore, Richard Purple. So he returns back to the base and tries to. He doesn't succeed, and then he escapes to the world. So the problem we now have is that you have this guy here with this edge in his blood. More likely not going to tell anybody about it, but if someone captures him, hold of his blood, they want to know what the is and what's going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a strike team is formed to go after him and either eliminate him or bring him in and bring him back in.
Nice. That's a great hook to have in the story.
Mhm.
So I think I actually loved the introduction panels of Tarbell and like whole underwater setting, and all that, like how the front panels were inset in the back panel. That whole,
Hmm.
like that whole page, I absolutely love that, like some of the innovative stuff, like how the panels are placed, and things like that. I really love that in your book.
Right. So I give all credit to Mark, and on each one of these, I do and then that's it. So it's Mark Louis Vukuki, and from now on, Mark V. I don't like pronouncing his name hard because it's so complicated. So Mark and I joined forces back in I want to say 2007. I think that is accurate. It's 2000. So we've been working there for 2007. This book.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a long time. So have you worked on the script for a very long time? Have you done like some sort of like early treatment or drafts, and then you came up with the final one, or like like is this a
Well, I mean,
series or something?
yeah. So this was written. I contacted him. As we've gone along, things have changed, adapted based on his ability. So working together so long that there isn't really anything that ever changed except for one thing. So in our first issue, Dr. Blaine had shoulder length hair, and in the book we burned it off. And
Right,
he from there he goes with the anime point.
right.
So it's the pretty defined point in there that you're like you see in most animes, mangas, and we do explain why his hair is like that later, some later issues.
Nice. Are you a big fan of anime as well, and manga?
I would say that I'm just a fan of any media that's fighting, and I just enjoy anything. If it's good, I'll enjoy it. I want to talk about it and share it with other people.
So what are your favorite ones?
Oh well, I mean, you got to go pretty much with the grand is Akira.
Oh yeah, I guess one of the
Yeah,
best. Yeah.
Ninja Scroll. I grew up on Robo, and I think, like to say, when I say Joe was a influence and Wildcats and things like that, Robotech was a big influence because that was the first, you want to say, cartoon where characters died
Yeah.
and come
Yeah.
back, and it just changes the whole entire landscape of an anime show. You see a character bleed out on the couch, or other character get blown up, and they're like, "Oh, he'll survive." Like in GI, the guy shoot away to safety, and show they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I think there is some sort of inspiration from GI Joe as well. I see in like especially in the uniforms of the superheroes, and
Mm-hmm.
all the some of the central characters. Um, do you like did you draw a bit of like channel a bit of GI Joe while thinking about this book as well?
I think that there was a lot of influence of like more not world, but some tactical gear, and then in some cases it was like what looks cool. Like you would look at Interim's costume, you're like thinking that's not tactical, and we're like, yeah, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
She's high heels because it's cool. It's not. It's because it's not practical. It's cool. When you design a character, you want something that looks. It looks like someone would wear, but then you go for the cool factor also. It looks cool. Do it.
Yeah. Who was your favorite GI Joe growing up, by the way? I had a collection of mine as
Uh,
well.
I mean, you always. I would say people always say it's always guys, but I think Duke was always my favorite. Like he was the commander, he was in charge, and he would always be in the middle of things, but he would always either get captured or go or be in a. And
Yeah.
I feel bad, and I think that that's where a lot of the stuff where once you start researching things like that where the Rev character comes in as someone who's mind scrambled because you can't come with that many times and not have your brain scrambled.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think growing up, my favorite one was probably Gung Ho, and and Roadblock. So
Roadblock, yeah.
when Rock played Roadblock, I was like, yeah.
And the cool thing about it is that Rock's first name is Marvin. So
Yeah. Very true. Very true. That's awesome. Is it so do you think this is like the first book in a long arc of like a long story arc? Like how many issues have you planned yet already?
so at the time we've finished 10 issues of the book, and each it's broken up. So issue 15 puts us right in the middle of the third story arc. So the first arc is the Revenant, which is 1 through 4. And then the next storyline is from issues 5 to 10, and that is called Reign of Chaos.
Right.
And the next is Thunder. So we've got arcs planned out, and included with those arcs, we do, I guess they were kind of annuals, like it takes place in between issues, because what ended up happening was that there was too much story um, that I had still left over. So instead of erasing it, I just pulled that piece of the book and then made its own story. So there was a section of the book where Blaine off on his own. And as I'm reading it, and I'm like, he do that? Like you're in there for your life with this Revenant. Why are you going off when you a little mission? So that out and made it its own story. So it's called Rush,
Right.
and it has Blaine coming back because Blaine's from Pittsburgh, so he comes back to his hometown to handle some.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Are you from Pittsburgh as well?
Yes, well,
Oh
actually,
yeah.
we call it we've renamed it to Comicsburg, so it's funny.
Oh, that's what comic book means. Right, right.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how did the town of Pittsburgh influence you and your work? Um, like
Well,
sometimes,
Pittsburgh's the steel city. We don't make steel anymore, and it's becoming more of a technology city. But it's like it's a people, and Pittsburgh has an identity, and what we like to say more where Pittsburgh is more than Penguins, Pirates, and Paris. We leave off the Steelers because it doesn't have P, but it's a different feeling here. And I've been to other cities, and Pittsburgh always had that energy of things done. And
mm,
that's one of the things that we like to do in the book is like somebody is getting something done, and it's going to be the hardest road possible, but it's going to happen.
yeah, that's so awesome. And I think some of these things, like if you draw from some of your real life experiences and real life environment, it makes the stories all the more authentic. Like they
Right.
bring a lot of like authenticity to yeah the setting and everything. Yeah, cool. This is one of my favorite questions. What are the 5 things in pop culture that you love the most? Like regardless of everything, like not just comic
Yeah.
books, just anything,
That's
movies.
so. I grew up on Atari, and I transitioned to PlayStation, and in all those years, I would probably say my favorite thing out of it has been Uncharted series. And the reason why is that you have a character that fails a lot, and you grow up on video games. All the characters were always perfect, and they always jumped and landed perfect. When you played Mario didn't trip and fall when he jumped, and Nathan Drake again continues to trip and fall. No matter in the situation, he jumped one thing, he would trip, he would grunt, and it felt like a real person was
Yeah,
doing these things. The same thing with in their Body Dogs, other game, Last of Us. It's it's like imperfect characters that fall and get hurt and get jacked in these games, and that's what makes it fun about it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you go to, of course, Star Wars, MCU.
yeah,
Then you've got like other things like from the Popeye. and of course, X-Men animated series, and other things is like you want to try to enjoy things and try to think other things away. So like I enjoy like more like the superhero genre, but also horror movies too. Probably my
Nice.
favorite character for horror is the Freddy Krueger. He was like the first horror character that had a personality,
Yeah.
and he would talk and talk crap, and it wasn't just the assassin like Michael Myers or just stalking someone.
Yeah.
He's stalking and he's having a good time doing it too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think in horror, I think that's a big innovation, right? If you think about it, a lot of times people think about a character like Michael Myers. They're like he's really scary because he's just out for blood, and like it's not like he's a force of nature. He's just out for blood,
Yeah,
and nobody can stop him or something. And that's what makes him scary. Like he has no personality, so you don't know anything about him.
yeah.
But if the opposite is also true, like if you do it right, then like you said, if you do it the other way around,
Mhm.
yeah, that so yeah.
And
What do you
I
think?
think that's something with England also. He's really good actor, and you remember from the V series, and um, he didn't have that. He was more of a character in that one, and to go something like that and see him playing this serial child murderer, and then it's the transition character as he went from like he's a serial killer, and then he comes from the dead, and then he's still killing people, and he became a pop culture icon
Yeah.
where he's in rap videos, there's toys, he's doing like there was a hotline, a Freddy line. I'm like, who in their right mind would call Freddy Krueger? Like, what is he going to talk about if you call Freddy Krueger? Like, I'm going to see you in your nightmares tonight. I'm interested in that. Why am I calling you?
Yeah, that's very true. I think, and some of those movies, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, also go like become progressively crazier with. I think was it Nightmare on Elm Street 6 or 7, where Freddy Krueger puts everyone's heads on pizza and then eats
Yeah.
it, and something like that. It was so
Yeah.
crazy.
Like it was like we called the one guy little meatball because he's like puts his head and then eats. It's like, hey, cultural like pop culture icon now in rap
Yeah.
the Fat Boys.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, segueing into next question is like what kind of characters attract you? And maybe a follow-up to that would be what kind of characters would you love to write?
Mhm. So it's a bag of things, and I say that as when you grew up, and I grew up in the '80s, and you had a large ensemble of different kind of characters, and when you look at a movie like Star Wars, a lot of people were Han Solos. I was on Luke Skywalker. Um, he had the lightsaber. The lightsaber will continue to be one of the coolest weapons ever.
Yeah.
So it's a laser sword on a hook on a belt. And it doesn't give off heat. These are so cool. They're swinging these things around, and they're not hurting themselves. They're not coming off their own hands and fingers. Or if
Yeah.
it's on your belt and you accidentally turn it on, you go to reach for it. So it's just like one of the funnest things ever, where you're like, this seems dangerous, and like they even like if people watch Rick and Morty, in recent season of Rick and Morty, Rick gives Morty a lightsaber, and he
Yeah.
drops it, and it's falling through the earth. You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's what would happen. Like somebody would be sitting around, they would let
Yeah.
drop it, it would just like start uh its way down through the earth, and it's going to earth core, and everybody's going to die. And one of the characters I wanted to write, and so it's a story that I wrote before, is the Batman character, where and it's not it's younger year where the main characters go, because I would feel like that Wayne died with his parents.
Mm.
And you think about it, he's raised by his servant pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
And his servant is dad. And he raised him as a stable person. And with Alfred having military training, I was that he was raising man and not Bruce Wayne.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was just wondering that story and how it shaped not only his relationship between Alfred and Bruce, but his relationship with Nick and Barbara as they go along,
Mm.
where you figure he didn't grow up with a dad, so how can he be a dad to these other characters that are behind him?
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. I think some of those Batman as father figure stories are pretty amazing too. Uh, with Damon Wayne uh and Dick Grayson stories as well, like some of the Nightwing stories with where he plays father figure are really good.
Right. It's something that I haven't covered in the movies yet, and I know that the James Gunn related movies has a Batman Robin story with Damian as Robin. So hopefully
Yeah.
they'll finally get to the Bat family because we've had Robin in two movies, had Batgirl. You've never had the whole ensemble of characters and having the Batman and Bruce dynamic having to deal with children. So
Yeah,
hopefully this movie's actually and we get to see something like
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I felt very disappointed when there was no follow-up to the Dark Knight movies where it felt like Joseph Gordon-Levitt is going to be the Robin. And
that.
maybe there's something there post those Batman movies.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow I really wanted to see the whole ensemble, like you said correctly. Yeah, that's amazing. And like DC has an amazing stable of characters. They have like a huge,
Mhm.
they have beautiful characters. It's a shame that the whole DCU was not run properly uh till now. They could have
Yeah.
easily done better than Marvel.
I mean, it's one of those things where in that kind of world, you have to let creators speak, and you have to get out of their way. And when you're chasing money, when another studio head start on you and just racking up the register with their movies, and it was because they stayed. They didn't say, well, I make $1 billion. Let's hit the reset button, and that's the problem you have. You can't just keep hitting the reset button and starting over because you're going to lose your audience, and they're
Yeah,
not going to be like you make billions of dollars because people are invested in your universe.
yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true. To be honest, like DC had a way bigger lead than Marvel, like on them
Mm-hmm.
because they had really good Batman movies, the Michael Keaton
Yeah.
ones, and then even way back in 70s they had a couple of good Superman movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean they have been producing good movies around their central characters. They just haven't done enough to rest of their for rest of their characters.
Right.
So it's a shame that they didn't think of that even after the amazing Christopher Nolan movies. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like the follow-up question, what kind of characters would you like to write?
Yep. So it was Batman. The Bruce Wayne Batman thing is where I would want to hang my hat at, and I talk about it a lot. So in case DC's listening, because I did write a pitch, and I really want to tell the story, and I think it's really a really good story to tell where seeing him mature from the 9 year old into before he decides to go off and train to be the Batman and
Mm,
how Alfred shaped that character because it's just my head where Bruce is sneaking out, he's getting into trouble, and Alfred is questioning him, and Bruce is just going to look at him and say, "You're not my dad."
mm, mm.
Work for me. You
That's
can't tell me
amazing.
what to do. And
Yeah.
it has to the way their relationship has to shape is that Bruce has to start trusting Alfred as a
Mm.
friend and
Mm.
not try to push him away, because that's how you would push somebody away. Someone is trying to help you and you're saying, get away from me, you're not my dad, you can't tell me what to do, you work for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. What do you think about Batman and Alfred relationship in the new Batman movie?
I mean, it's always that tension that it has, and you can see that there's something in the background as they were growing up where he's tending to Bruce and he's trying to kind of say, I mean, in the Nolan movies, it was kind of like trying to stop him from what he was trying to do. And in the recent Batman movies, he kind of like a sack almost, where he's directing him like he's like playing the Oracle character, where he's directing him from the console. And I don't know if you really like that kind of way they do that. Cause I think there's a character in his Oracle. So
Mm.
I don't like having out in that position. He's more of the guy waiting at home to pick this the up at the end of the night and then tell him, don't go back out there, Master Bruce. But he's really that he's telling him not to do it, but
Yep.
encouraging him to do
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true. I did like Andy Serkis's take on the character, and
it.
he has the right personality fit for Alfred as well, I think. Because I like the fact that in some of the like earlier movies, Alfred is always like this old guy who's really frail and
Yeah.
has all his best years behind him, whereas Andy Serkis is a much younger. Obviously, Robert Pattinson is also a much younger Batman, but Alfred is much younger as well, and he's probably like he's really fit and that kind of thing. So I really loved like how they casted Andy Serkis in that role, and it was really
Right.
interesting to me.
Right. And he looks that he was in special forces and he can go out and help kick ass too with Batman. I mean, it's
Yeah,
almost the same thing with Aunt May and Spider-Man, where like they made her like more like his grandma
yeah, yeah,
in the Spider-Man in the animated series, like Spider-Man's basic friends in the comics. It all looked like she was like had one foot in the grave all the time, and I really liked it. They went to um, Marissa Tomei in the
yeah,
Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Where, like he's a teenager, so and she's like more like 15, 20 years older than him. She's not a ground. She's not 90 and about to die.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think they have put a lot more thought into the recent movies. I feel like yeah, they've done well.
Right. I mean, it just goes that where these characters can get into action and they're not just like, oh, she fell, broke her hip. So
Yeah, yeah,
she's in the hospital for the whole week. So she broke her head. It was in the Tobey Maguire's one, Rosemary Harris is Aunt May, and like, and she spends a lot of them in the hospital after she gets attacked by the Green Goblin. But like, she could have just tripped her hip and not have been.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have like a favorite like Spider-Man run? I know like Spider-Man is everyone's favorite because it's kind of like it always has this way like as a teenager I loved Spider-Man because Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
is a teenager and like he has a lot of similar problems as mine. So you for my like in my life I had different kinds of comics for every age of mine that I was attracted to, and now I love indie comics much more
Yeah.
than any other like mainstream comics. But yeah, because I've
Yeah.
just
So my Spider-Man, I think it was Craven's Last was probably my favorite because he was. I think that as you go on with the Edge, you'll notice that like a lot of that influence is coming from a lot of places. An unstable character is always going to be one of my favorite things about comics because Craven was really unstable in that run where he wanted Spider-Man
yeah, yeah, yeah,
his power. He wanted to eat him, and you're thinking about that. You're thinking, yeah, the bad guy has to eat the good guy. I don't know if that's or not, but it sounds like something to do.
Very, very true. Very, very true. So this is, you said, like issue number 10 of The Edge, that's coming out right
So
now.
we're up to issue 15,
Oh, we
including
have to.
those stories coming in the middle. And I said is that the first four is an arc, and we call it Arc Revenant because he's the main focus in that. The second arc is our Reign of Chaos. So as a double kind of meeting where the name of the team is Reign, and then the name of the lead is so it's the of Chaos and the Reign. The interesting character. He's has the edge, of course, and he enjoys powers. So
Hmm.
he's one of the first ones that's truly infected. As you see his body is actually changing. It's getting darker. His face is kind of damaged. He's just I won't say he's an unstable character that is doesn't understand his role in the
Hmm.
universe. So he's
Hmm.
forming his own kind of team to kind of protect. I put him in like vein of like a Magneto character where he's forming
Right.
his people together, saying that we're better than you. We want to protect ourselves because you've got these fanatics there called Gods that want to dominate all the people who have powers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're building that dynamics on all sides and, and we'll start to choose sides in the story. And then once they choose sides, then it's going to be a battle. It's going to be war.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now I feel like I want to read all the 15 issues. No, I really love some like really long moving arcs, like long arcs that span over a lot of issues, and they're like, and obviously, like if they're well written, you keep getting hooked on to the next one. Um,
And I think that's my favorite thing about like stories is those long story arcs where it's planting seeds at the beginning don't bear fruit until really led into the story. And like in when you look at the movies they do with the Infinity Saga, where you had the some of the stones earlier, and you're like, oh, what do they do with these things? And
yeah,
Thanos shows up, and the glove shows up. You're like, here we go. And as you're when you're sitting in the theater with Infinity War, and you thinking that there's no not gonna get all the stones. He's not gonna win. Thanos doesn't
yeah,
win.
yeah,
You go back to the comics, like he did win the comics, but they're not gonna do movies. There's no way. And then you get to the end and he snaps his fingers, does what he says he's gonna do. Okay.
yeah,
And it was funny because like going to these movies is always a thing. And
yeah,
mine is like, that it? Did he win? Is
yeah,
the movie over? You think that in these kind of stories, bad guys don't like, and you go back to G.I. Joe and you have you have your 5 day arc,
yeah,
and like Cobra's winning, and then Joe is fighting back, and then they win the day, and they sneak into the movie, and Cobra Commander gets arrested again, and like
yeah,
that. You never see the villain win the day
yeah, yeah,
in any of these series or anything like that. The villain never like fingers, wipes out half the galaxy, and gets away with it.
yeah. Exactly, and that's exactly why Avengers Endgame is my favorite movie of the entire series. Like
Mm-hmm.
they went there, they did it. Oh sorry, Infinity War was my favorite movie
Yes.
of all the entire series because they went there, they did it, and like Thanos won. Uh, Also, Thanos, the character of Thanos is so beautifully written. It's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's one of the most perfectly villain written in like in most of the movies. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why people hate
And
on Marvel movies, but
and the
yeah,
only reason they could do that with that character is because they had invested in the other characters. So you didn't have to spend time on who are these Guardians, who are the Avengers, who is that? They did that work. So then once you get there and have the villain be the um protagonist of the story because he's like it's his story,
yeah,
and only
yeah,
because you do all that build up early that you were able to do a story where the bad guy is the antagonist or the protagonist and the antagonist of the story, and
Yeah.
that's how storytelling works. And it's
Hmm.
something that I want to do with is that I want to try and put the focus on somewhat on the villain and get into their head and tell their story at the same time telling the story of these other characters. So you build up everything as you go, and then you can focus on other characters in the story, and then you don't get lost. Um, you don't do that build up. That's feel like you're telling a story, telling a story, telling a story. Then all of a sudden, Sabretooth is the main villain character of the story. You're like, I don't want to hear his story. I want to know about that other guy. Because they didn't do proper build. You have to do builds. You have to build
Yeah.
that universe, and then you have to build those characters in that universe.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your take on the Phase 4 of Marvel?
I mean, it's interesting because it's one of those things where you have to restart,
Hmm.
and writing is hard. It's
Hmm.
always hard where you lose most of your big. You've lost your Tony Stark, your Robert Downey Jr. You've lost your Chris Evans, lost your Black Widow. No, she had a story in that, but she's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in my mind, it's kind of like freedom, but
Hmm.
freedom comes at a price sometimes, where
Yeah.
it's unfocused sometimes, and you see that a lot of ideas there, and a lot of the ideas mesh well together.
Yeah.
So that I'm like, as you started it, you were okay. Got to the end, you're okay. It's what's in the middle. It was some kind of a mix bag. And
Yeah.
me, I don't want to be the guy who is blasting things that I didn't really enjoy. So I want things that I liked. So
Yeah.
the beginning was
Yeah.
good, the end was good. So we'll just stay there. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with starting with Anne. I'm really looking forward to Kang.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to Kang. I actually really enjoyed his character in the Loki, like the final episode of
Mm-hmm.
Loki. I really liked it. I think Loki was probably my favorite thing in Phase 4. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I wish Winter Soldier and Falcon were better. It was like such a beautiful, interesting idea, and Anthony Mackie's amazing. I wish they
Yeah.
just gave him the Captain America part already.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean, the next movie is going to be his movies. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. And I think that um Winter Soldier and Falcon, I think that movie got hit hard by COVID. And you can
yeah,
tell as the story's going, you can tell they wanted to go a certain direction and weren't able to because of the COVID restriction and could do what they could do. So I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but I could see where the cuts were or had to happen in the story, and it kind of affected as it went along. But getting to see John Walker is probably one of my favorite replacement characters in the comics because he was an unstable character.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I really liked some of the ideas. I just didn't love the villains and those like the main mission of main mission of Anthony Mackie's character, like Falcon's character. I just didn't love
Mhm.
the villain side of things in that series.
Yeah.
I loved the odd couple thing that they were doing with
Hmm.
the with the soldier and Falcon in there.
Right.
But yeah. And also
But I think
the
that,
Captain America, the evil Captain America thing. Sorry.
and I think that the dealing with the snap and consequences of it, and then the consequence, all those people returning. You think that people moved on with their lives, like people remarried, and then all of a sudden your wife is. So how do you deal with stuff like that? Like you got remarried, you got children, and your wife and your other children come back, and it's just the dynamic of the world where
Yeah.
you it almost like the snap remove 50% of the population, and now you have areas of the world that are abandoned. People can move
Yeah.
to those areas, and it's space and there's more food and there's more resources, and then all of a sudden everybody comes back, and all of a sudden you're right back and you're in a position where you're less resources, less more people every. So I
Yeah.
mean, I really like them dealing with that dynamic. I really how in Loki how now it's dealing with the consequences of the multiverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you watched the video on YouTube where it shows how everything linked up. So how the events in Loki synced up with Scarlet Witch, which linked up with events in No Way. Um,
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
as Sylvie killed He Who Remained, that's when Wanda became the Scarlet Witch. That's when the this broke. So I mean, even though that people say that Phase wasn't as good, but it laid the seeds, and so many, there's
Mm.
so many really Easter eggs
Yeah.
in that part of the story, just building on things, and I recommend the teams behind those movies. They were able to do this kind of things because these are things I've never seen in movies before.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there isn't any franchise that is able to go this long
Mm.
without a reboot or restart. And
Absolutely.
even though things didn't go as well, but I mean, the story is still there, and you'll be able to continue and follow characters as they go.
Yeah. Very true. Well, yeah. I still have to catch up on Wakanda Forever. I've been waiting for it to drop. So it finally dropped on 1st of Feb, and
Yeah,
now like
it's
I've been busy for the last couple of weeks. So
it's
yeah.
a little it's a really sad movie, and they pull at the strings at the beginning when the just Marvel studio logo comes up, you're like, dang. But not only it's a story of feeling like you own that loss, but also what's to come. And there's a lot
Mm,
of hope in the story, and not
mm,
just Wakanda, but from Namor, or I'm sorry, Namor,
no
and
more.
his people
Yeah.
too. And I thought they did a really good job of putting them at odds of being very similar in
Yeah.
respects of the what's it Talakan, and the way that they mirror Wakanda, and how like you say Wakanda was conquered
Mm,
and Talakan was, as
mm.
their surface part, and that those mixes and those parallels that makes the story so.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I have to catch up on it. It's Ryan Coogler is also one of my favorite directors, so
Yes,
I'll
yeah.
always
I
look
mean,
forward to something good from him.
he could after losing Chadwick, and it's a really good tribute to him and pushing forward with Wakanda, and so it's a really good movie. I thought, well, it's a really good movie. Like I said, that I'm really
Yeah.
looking next week, looking forward to Ant-Man.
Nice. Yeah. I so much. I miss Chadwick Boseman so much.
Yeah.
He's yeah, such a legend. Oh. On that note, we're coming to time, but thank you for taking your time and joining us today. And um, I'll I'll do 1 minute to pitch the Edge and how to order it. How can people get it? Just
All right.
take it away.
So the book is scheduled to release March 8th. It's in the Diamond catalog for January. If you are impatient like me and you want to get it now, you can go to the comic.com and pick up the books there. So different covers. So the covers that are available only through the website and convention be different than the covers that's going to stores. So you can pick it up March 8th. You can get it right now.
Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you so much, Marvin. Really loved having you here.
Thank you.